All right, we are recording. I'm Jake Newfield, and this is For the Sake of Argument. Mosab Hassan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mosab Hassan Yousef is the son of the Hamas co founder. Mosab was a Palestinian militant who fled to Israel in 1997, where he worked as an Israeli spy. Mosab was then considered to be one of Israel's most valuable intel sources on Hamas. And Mosab provided information which allowed Israel to stop dozens of Hamas suicide attacks and prevent the assassination of many Israelis. And Mosab, your efforts also contributed to the incarceration of your father. So you've had a tough life. You've had quite an interesting journey.
You can say a flight with lots of turbulence.
Wow. So what was it like growing up as the son of a Hamas leader?
The Middle Eastern environment, the Middle Eastern culture is not an easy environment for any child. And I think the world today is witnessing this firsthand. Live streaming of children being brutally abused, killed, used as human shields, beaten, raped, name it. It's a very harsh environment, and this is the environment of my childhood. And today, I fight on behalf of all the children, whether they are Arab or Jewish children, that I would like to break the cycle of violence that is inspired by religion, nationalism, etc., and it's not concerned of the well-being. It's not concerned of the future of children. It has been burning generation after generation, and this has to come to an end, regardless of the opinion of the majority. And this is why I stand firmly today that this must come to an end, whatever it takes. Enough of Palestinian leaderships sacrificing children for financial and political gain. This was the environment where I was brought up. I lived the lie. I thought I was Palestinian. I thought there was a Palestine, only to discover that Palestine never existed. It was nothing but a colonial entity, that the Jewish people succeeded in claiming their independence, and they developed their country from scratch. The Arabs had the opportunity, and those are my ancestors. We are Arabs. This is our ethnicity. We are not Palestinians. When I was born, my birth certificate said on it Jordanian, as hundreds of thousands of Arabs who were born in that region, in the West Bank. So with that said, today, to claim that there was such thing as Palestine and Israel is occupying that state is totally false. It's baseless. And I'm here to share with the world the truth of the situation, not because I'm going against Palestinians or because I am pro-Israel, as much as I am pro-life. And it bothers me, and I take it personally, to see the continuation of child abuse, generation after generation, and no one's speaking on behalf of the children. And people don't know how to approach the problem. And the vast majority don't know the origins of this suffering and why the children are dying. So it's not up to the opinion of those who never been to that region. It's not up to the opinion of the majority to say, cease fire now, ignoring the responsibility that we all have to remove savages from power who have been abusing the children. So for us, for me personally, And for this, the rest of the free world, if we don't want to see more wars of this nature, then we must take responsibility, stand united, and tell the Palestinian thugs, okay, that the use of human shields to achieve political gain is totally rejected. So this is basically the distance where I come from. If I to just go back to my childhood, this is how I feel. And this is the task that I would like to see accomplished in my lifetime.
What was it like growing up in Hamas? I want to understand your childhood. I have no idea what it was like. Just help me understand.
Well, this was the reason what I said. All the nature of the death culture and the violent culture and the use of children. The abuse does not begin with using children as human shields. The abuse begins. Please be patient. The abuse begins with indoctrination. To indoctrinate children to hate people they never met, to brainwash them with ideas that never existed, such as Palestine, to make them carry the responsibility of their ancestors, that they have the obligation to die for the nation, for Allah, and there is no such thing as nation, there is no such thing as Allah, where the children start feeling the burden of the parents and the grandparents, that they have obligation to die for the suffering of the people. So this by itself is a toxic brew, a combination of religion and nationalism, all nonsense. And all those who advocate on behalf of these ideologies, they don't care for the children. So if you ask me how was it like to grow up, it's total abuse on multiple levels, at school, at mosque, in the street, by the media, by the parents, by the entire culture, all from the sheikh to the imam, to the mullah, to the priest, to the politician, to the revolutionary guards, those self-appointed leaders, they are all conspiring against the children. And enough is enough. I don't care for Palestine. I don't want Palestine if it means the death of generation after generation after generation for eternity, and creating all this global situation. So from my tone, you can feel my frustration and my anger, and I don't want to hide it. It is what it is. Take it, leave it. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. I'm determined to expose the Palestinian lie on behalf of those children. Now, how I felt as a child, you need to live it to understand it. So whether you accept my attitude or not, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I want this to end as soon as possible. Hamas must be removed from power. They abused children, and they created a generation of deluded people, deluded individuals. And this is what we witnessed on October 7th, kidnapping and beheading Jewish children for revenge. So this is a capital crime, and we cannot accept it.
Thank you for sharing all that. I'm really fascinated, Mosab, by you and the life you've lived. I mean, it's remarkable, right? Growing up as the son of a Hamas leader, and then eventually defecting to Israel, becoming a spy for Israel. It's like a movie. I mean, it's wild. I really want to learn more about you. What would you be willing to share and I'm sorry if this is like a hard question, but like, are there any hard or sad memories that you'd be willing to share with me of your time living under Hamas? And it's okay if I'm asking too much. I can move to the next question.
No, you're not asking too much. I have wrote books about this. It's not one thing or one event. There's so many events, and again, when I say a death culture, it's literally a death culture. It's not that it's only me.
Yeah.
So, I don't, if it was a personal problem only that, let's say a bad situation happened to me growing up in that culture, then I would not be even talking about it because it's mine, and I will find my peace eventually. But when I see it repeated again and again, so let's not just reduce this into a personal hardship into this conversation. Everything surrounding any child who's growing up in that culture is not a good environment. It's intoxicating environment, and there's so many things that a person can talk about. For now, let's focus on the main topics and on the more important stuff, not
Absolutely.
only the personal.
So, what is Israel doing the right thing in Gaza right now? How do you feel about the war that Israel is conducting in Gaza currently?
Yeah. Well, there is no such thing as right and wrong. The laws of the universe are the laws of cause and effect. And Hamas, for 36 years, they built momentum with the intention to annihilate the state of Israel. And they kept building this momentum. And the climax of it was October 7th. So Israel had no choice but to retaliate. And Israel has no choice but to remove Hamas from power. So what's happening in Gaza is justice. And the people of Gaza who voted for Hamas, who still hide hostages in their houses, who still who don't provide Israel with the location of the hostages, are complicit in this crime. The people of Gaza, the vast majority of Palestinians agreed on evil. They still agree on evil by the name of resistance and fighting the occupation. It's a false claim. It's an unjust or unjust cause. It's a lie that keeps the victim in the cycle of victimhood. And they like it because it pays. And what I say in this situation, that Israel had no choice but to manage a very dirty war where terrorists hijacked their own children and used them as human shields, sacrificed them on a purpose for political and financial gain, sacrificed many civilians to delegitimize Israel. They are using civilians, if there is such thing, as a weapon, because in Gaza you don't know actually who is the civilian and who's not. So for Israel, was it Israel required to actually suffer October 7 genocide, then send foot soldiers in the thousands into a Hamas trap so they can kill tens of thousands of Israeli soldiers in their sophisticated death trap beneath the Gaza city and all over the Gaza Strip? I don't think this would be fair to ask any democracy in the face of a mega terrorist event like October 7. Any other country, and that includes the United States, would have wiped out Gaza Strip off the map just hours after such an attack. Israel did everything within their ability, and I am a witness, and God is a witness. And all those with intelligence are witnessing that Israel did everything within their ability to minimize the civilian casualties, while Hamas did everything within ability to maximize the civilian casualty for political gain, to delegitimize Israel. And they succeeded to a certain degree. So now you ask me if it's right or wrong. It depends. And the people, if I had to go with the opinion of the majority that what's happening is wrong, then this means let's leave Hamas in power, let them build their power again, and invade the rest of civilization and kill everybody in it. Women and children, let them rape and let them get away with their crime every time they commit it. Because the majority now agree that ceasefire now without a Hamas solution. So it's not up to the sense of right and wrong. So many righteous people out there, human rights activists, pro-Palestine fanatics, even feminists, name it. All the opposite extremes coming together to protest on behalf of Palestine. And they think that they have the higher moral ground. And I say, you don't. You've never been there. So this is not an issue of morality. Okay, I said this from the early beginning of this war. This is not a matter of right or wrong. This is now handled based on the laws of cause and effect. These are the universal laws of the universe. Nobody is above this. The human laws and what's so-called international law is non-existential. It's created by the superpowers to the inferior, and the inferior must obey. You can call them more the rules of the game, not international law. This international law is not a Bible. It's so all those who want to hide behind international law and tell Israel what's supposed to do, what's supposed not to do, sitting on the sidewalk while Israel in the swamp, they don't have the right, and they don't have the higher moral ground. They don't. So this is handled according the laws of the desert. Whether you want to accept it or not, or your audience want to accept it or not, and I said this from the beginning. What Hamas committed is a capital crime. They cannot get away with it. It requires a capital punishment. Not according to international law, not according to American law, not according even the Israeli law. They started a situation that we don't know how it's going to end. It could end with a regional war. It could end with a global war. World War III. It doesn't matter what it takes. We cannot accept to be ruled by savages. Not Israel, not myself, not anybody in the free world.
When we think about who will lead and govern Gaza and Palestine in the absence of Hamas, who do you think that would be? This is a crazy question. Do you think you could be a leader for Gaza or for Palestine after Hamas?
I don't have interest in politics.
Oh,
I don't have interest in politics, and I don't give a damn who's going to rule Gaza the day after. Whoever is going to be, if they agree on a leader, if they are actually, if they were a people, if they were a nation, then they may have the very basic of agreeing on a legitimate leadership. But up to this point, the what so-called Palestinians cannot actually choose a legitimate leadership. When we talk about Palestinian, they exist with so many opposing extremes that we don't know which one is the actual representative of the Palestinian people, because there is no such thing as Palestinian people. They're just gangs, political gangs, tribes, have inner conflict, and they found a common enemy, and that's Israel. And this is how they export their internal issues and blame it on Israel. But the real enemy is within. They are conflicted. They kill each other. This is their nature. So if they become civilized at some point and believe in the democratic manner and find a leader, then this leader must choose between establishing a nation, and that's going to require lots of work. It requires selfless leadership to do such a job. Build a nation, good luck. I will not go against these people. But any future leader who is going to keep playing the game of hit and run, then blame, adapting to violence, adapting to killing civilians indiscriminately, justifying rape, kidnap, use of human shields, then this leader, whoever it is going to be eliminated. There is no way around it. This is a Palestinian problem. It's not my problem. It's not Israel's problem. Now we have a very difficult task. We have the hostage situation. We must bring them back to their home because they are dying slowly as the world betrays them. And we must remove Hamas from power. Every last one of them. Now, post-war, leave it to the post-war.
Can I ask you questions about your personal experience? I mean, earlier in the call, you said that it's not about you. It's not about your story. Like the message you want to deliver is about the people, and the children and what's going on. And I hear you. Like, I don't mean to, but at the same time, like you also have a really interesting story that I want to learn more about. And I think people should hear. Do you mind if I ask you questions about your life, or do you prefer that I stick on the more global issues?
You can ask whatever you want.
Okay. So you've talked about this and you've written about this. I want to understand how you ended up in a Hamas prison. Like what led you to being there? And I hate to ask this question because I'm sure it's painful to talk about, but I do want to ask about just what it was like in the Hamas prison.
Yeah, well, first of all, I was not in a Hamas prison. I was in Israeli prison. When I was an active member of Hamas back in 1996. I ended up in Israeli prison. Within the Israeli prison, Hamas controlled the fate of all prisoners. They had secret security service. They were torturing people and they were killing people. So for 16 months, I witnessed Hamas brutality, and that happened in Israeli prison. Israel tried very hard during that time to help some of the prisoners escape the Hamas torture. But Hamas dug tunnels, and Hamas opened the fence between the prison sections, and they smuggled prisoners to keep the actual number in every section accurate. And whenever Israel came to count one section, they smuggled the people being tortured to the other section. I don't know if this even can be explained in a sentence, but it was Israeli prison, and Hamas was playing very dirty job inside.
My mistake. Sorry. It's
not a mistake. It just I don't know how to reduce such experience into a human language to the curious audience and to your curiosity. It's you want the small details that is going to show Hamas how bad Hamas is. And okay, this is your approach, but it's in front of your eyes what Hamas has been doing. They used all the Gazans, innocent children, as human shields for the last 11 months. They have been sacrificing children. They hold hostages that include infants. And that's enough. Okay, I can tell you a lot about what Hamas did in prison, what Hamas did during the Second Intifada, the suicide bombing attacks, that they actually killed their political rivals. I can go on and on and on for forever. It's right in front of our eyes. So it's our choice whether we want to see it or deny it.
And just in terms of your story, so how did you end up in that Israeli prison? What got you there, and What was that like?
I told you I was active in the Hamas Islamic movement at the time. It was the environment where I was brought up. What are you expecting from
No,
son of a Hamas leader? You
I
know,
yeah,
it's our environment. Like
absolutely.
all my brothers were, most of them were arrested. Anybody who was involved in Hamas activity was arrested. And I don't think that you have the time now
Okay.
to hear all the details how I end up there.
Can I ask you what you did as an Israeli spy about that experience?
First of all,
No. Okay. I'll
this
move
is
on.
just a label.
Yeah, yeah.
Israeli spy. What is a spy? Is
Israeli
it like,
agent you're working
it's
for. Oh, I see.
yeah,
Or
it's
or
okay. Listen, in a simple way,
sure.
many people want to make this into a spy gets paid to sell national intellectual property to the enemy. Okay. Now, the national property or the intellectual property that belongs to the defense of a nation is not up to one individual to take such treasure and sell it to the enemy during war. Okay, that would lead us to treason. This is what it means to spy. Okay, in my case, during the Second Intifada, Hamas was sending dozens of suicide bombers to kill people indiscriminately. I gave the information. I chased them. I did everything within my ability to locate those suicide bombers before they reach their target. So now you can say whatever you want to say. This is not like a profession. Okay. And I was not recruited by the FBI and qualified to become a spy against the Soviet Union. That's not it. I was in my hometown. Hamas was sending terrorists to kill civilians indiscriminately. That included Arabs, Muslim, Jews. People died in the thousands. And I knew about these people's locations and I gave the information and I'm proud of what I did. Okay.
You saved many lives. You saved many lives.
It doesn't matter. I never claimed. Okay. You save one life, what's the difference if you save 1,000 lives? Now, if you think that this is a spy thriller, you are not much watching a movie. This is reality. This is the real world.
What do you want more people to know about Hamas that you think people are not aware of? What do you want people to realize about Hamas? You've spoken a lot about their character and their intentions. Is there anything else we can, learn from your insight to understand Hamas better?
Right. Okay. Hamas, as a religious extreme movement, called for the annihilation of human race, the destruction of a democracy that includes a diverse society of Muslims, Arabs, Jews, Druze, name it. Make them into a terrorist organization. But I wish that they stopped at that level. I wish that they stopped at the level of killing civilians. The IRA did that. Other terrorist groups did that. Bin Laden did that. But to take it to the level of beheading babies, kidnapping infants, raping women, wiping out 20 peaceful farming communities on October 7th, killing every form of life, burning trees, demolishing houses, killing farmers of as foreigners, Thai workers working in the farming field, beheading them with axes in front of the cameras and filming that and praising Allah as they did, turning peaceful communities into a blood bath, going into a concert and raping teenagers and kidnapping people. This what defines savagery. This is way beyond terrorist attack. And this is all documented by Hamas themselves. So all those who are in denial and want to justify Hamas barbaric attacks, they are complicit in Hamas crime. There is not much to say about Hamas. I can repeat it again and again and again. Growing up, they were my heroes. As I got to know them in prison, I saw their brutality. I did not want to take part of their business. I fought against them. But later on, they showed a picture of a savage group protected by a savage society, and now they are protected by a savage global movement that, in fact, they find pleasure in Hamas atrocities and in Hamas evil practices. So this is what we are dealing with. It's not only Hamas, it's who's behind them, who's giving them the cover, who's validating their work. And we are talking about a generation of dangerous people, a generation of new Nazis that must be stopped.
Is it realistic to take out all of Hamas? Is that a realistic goal, do you think?
Why not? Why not?
Because
Any member of Hamas that is registered to Hamas must be eliminated,
with
whether through assassination or electric chair or hanging or even a shot in the head without hesitation. We need to think. We don't need to think about it two times. Anyone who took part in October 7 requires the death penalty. We have no other choice around it. And I think if the world was not complicit and given Hamas a lifeline, Hamas would be over by now. Now, if you're asking me as Hamas is an idea or ideology, at some point Nazism was an ideology, and it ended up in the head of a dead man. And Nazism was reduced to ashes. So Hamas is no different. Islamists are no different. Islam is no different. All these violent ideologies must be reduced and destroyed.
You mentioned Islam. Can I ask you a question about Islam? So my understanding, Mosab, and you can correct me, is that your stance, you are actually let me not speak for you. I do have a question about your view on Islam, but let me first ask you, what is your view on Islam?
As someone who grew up in a Muslim family, I was conditioned to be a Muslim. Later on, I went to a Sharia school. I studied Islam. I memorized huge portions of the Quran. I read the Quran on a regular basis. I studied classic Arabic to understand the language of the Quran. I spent most of my childhood and up to my mid-20s in that environment. Islam is not a religion of peace. Bottom line. And this is not according to one sect. This is according to the Quran itself. And all the Islamic sects, denominations, follow a major book, and that's Quran. And Quran in itself is not peaceful. The God of the Quran Allah is not peaceful. He's a very violent God. He's not tolerant. He hates the Jewish people. He hates the non-Muslims. And he gives the authority to the Muslims to punish the non-Muslims if they don't obey Allah, to function as the sword of Allah on earth. And this by itself is blasphemic, is wrong, is against the way of life, is against the way of evolution, it's against religion, it's against morality, it's against diversity. And those who claim that Islam is a religion of peace, they are liars. They are all paid actors. They are all compromised by the sheikh oil money. And they don't want to piss off Islamic political regimes and Islamic money and Muslim investors. And most importantly, they want to avoid the Muslim rage. So they just keep dragging humanity into the trap that Islam is a religion of peace, while it's not. So, as someone who know the Quran very well, so the people cannot be mistaken, say, okay, this is your Islam, or this is your sect, or this is your denomination. I tell them, rest, take a seat, and listen. The Quran itself has a problem. Allah Himself has a problem. And if we want to deal with Islamic violence, then we need to deal with the root cause of this problem, and it resides in the Quran itself.
What about the millions of Muslims across the world who do not engage in jihad and who are peaceful?
Then they are not Muslims. Then they're just nominal Muslims. They have been given the identity of a Muslim because they were born in that environment, and they don't have any other identity. They are just weak individuals, and they don't practice Islam. According Allah, they are going to hell. But for some reason, they just keep clinging and hanging on this identity. Muslims. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. And they don't earn my respect to identify with something they don't understand, or to identify with a Nazi ideology and pretend to be peaceful. So Islam is not ethnicity. It's not even a religion. It's a totalitarian system. And this system does not see anyone outside of it, does not recognize anyone out of it. It's a mental illness, in other words. And the Muslims, whether they know what Islam is or they don't know what Islam is, as long as they identify with this sick ideology, I consider them psychopaths. I consider them sick people, and they must seek help.
Yeah, there are you I think you called them nominal Muslims. I mean, you made a term for the millions of Muslims who are peaceful, and I just want to point out, they're not actors, right? Like there are millions of Muslims in this world who are peaceful. You can call them nominal if you want, but I just think it's worth noting, right? Isn't that an important fact? I think. Do you agree?
No, I disagree.
Oh.
I disagree because in Islam, and you know that I rejected Islam totally many years ago. The Islamic law, okay, the Islamic law says, and this is according to Muhammad in a Sahih Hadith, if someone changes his religion, Islam in this case, give him 3 days. If he does not return to Islam, kill him. So this is according to Muhammad now, the founder of Islam, and according to the most trusted Islamic sources. So now there is a death sentence to me against me by this totalitarian system. Now, when someone identify with Islam and come and say I'm a Muslim, now how am I to actually feel about him? If there is a death sentence against me and against, by the way, many ex-Muslims, that we are supposed to be beheaded for just rejecting our belief system and its delusion.
Right.
So now for you, you can sit, you and the rest of the world, you can sit and reject my concern because you are not in the fire. There is no death penalty hanging over your head. There is no price over your head. You are sitting in comfort. We are fighting for our lives. Me and thousands of those who rejected the Islamic ideology. And there are perpetrators out there who want us dead. Now, when some Mustafa, because he was born that way, come and create a false sense that Islam is a religion of peace, they are already complicit in this crime. They are already taking the side of the enemy. They are already giving cover to those who want to harm me and harm the rest of civilians and the rest of non-Muslims across the world. This is why I stand firmly and say, what makes you a Muslim? Are you a practicing Muslim? Then you are a jihadist. Or at least you justify the jihad. If this is what you do, this means that you are my enemy. It's as simple as that. Now you tell me they are peaceful, not peaceful. How do I know?
Look, I know these issues are contentious, and I really hope that none of my questions are coming off silly. You know, when I say, "Oh, I'm curious," and you're thinking, Jake, like you're curious. I feel like I don't want my curiosity to come off as childish. I mean, these are serious issues we're talking about. So, so here's my thought. I want to hear what you think about this. So, you're talking about Islam, and you know the Quran very well, so I'm not going to dispute that. So I'm Jewish, right? I'm culturally Jewish. I'm not religious, but I consider aspects of my culture. There are elements of Judaism that I appreciate, and culturally I consider myself Jewish, right? And a quick question for you: like, would you agree that Judaism is not a religion of violence? Like, you would say Judaism is a kind religion overall. Would you agree?
Look, first of all, I'm not expert on Judaism.
But
That's
here's
number one.
yeah, because here's what I want to say. Just my one thing. So in the Torah, there are certain in the Jewish Bible, there are certain laws that are they're obsolete, they're considered cruel, and they're no longer in practice. Okay, so one such law is stoning for adultery. It's in the Torah that adultery can be punishable by death. It's in the Torah that you can have the death penalty for a blasphemy, and it's in the Torah that you can have slaves. And so as a Jew, I stand against all of those things. I'm very much against slavery. And the reason I can be Jewish and be against certain rules in the Torah is because I don't consider Judaism to be a literal, like I don't take the Bible literally. I don't take it literally. And so I discard the elements that I think are unethical. And so I don't mean to anger you, but I think my final question on Islam is that don't you think that in the same way that I can be Jewish and discard the immoral aspects of the Torah, you can be Islam, or you can be Muslim rather, a moderate or as you say, nominal Muslim, and discard the elements of the Quran which you feel are unethical? Is that a possibility?
Okay. Let me ask you this. So you say that it's violent because it's stoning adulterers or those who commit adultery. Does it specify that they are to stone the non-Jewish
I don't know.
also?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Is it specific that it stones the Muslims? Does it mention the Muslims by name in the Torah
I don't know.
or the Christians?
I don't know. I could look it up.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and that's the difference in Islam. Islam points out a Jewish and a Christian population. The Christians and the Jews are mentioned by name in the Quran, and the Muslims are given the authority to function as the sword of Allah. So the violent verses that you say, they're coming from the Stone Age, and Judaism has reformed thousands of years ago. And look at Israel today. It's a secular society, even though there are people who believe in the Stone Age ideologies. The majority of the Jewish people disagree with barbarism and savagery. Now, the Holy Scripture, the Bible, is not the highest authority of the state of Israel or of the Jewish people. It's the Jewish intelligence that understand the essence and understand the distance, the space and time. And it's proving that the Jewish people don't practice savagery. Like, bring me one evidence that a Jewish crowd or mob that stoned a woman for committing adultery in public, and that was praised by the Jewish people. It's impossible. You cannot find any evidence of that. But you will find it in Pakistan, you will find it in Saudi Arabia, you will find it in many other Islamic societies. Then the Muslims, when you talk about adultery, this is a punishment system that is targeting one society. It's written for the Jewish people. If a Jewish person, let's say, sin in a certain way, there is a punishment. It's for the community, the Jewish community. It's not a law that applies for the non-Jews. So the Muslims think that they have the right to punish the non-Muslims, to go invade and force people to worship Allah. And if they disobey, they have the right to kill them. This is what they did for 1400 years already. And they are demonstrating that through jihad, which is a unique concept only to Islam. There is no such thing as jihad in Judaism. There is self-defense. This is understandable. The use of force is understandable. But to go and try to conquer the globe and create a global Jewish state, this does not exist in Judaism. So I am not concerned of scripture that was written from the beginning of time. I am concerned of a scripture that is still active and people act on it by killing and kidnapping and justifying all type of barbarism. And that's only existing in Islam. And this is why we have in all this Islamic global chaos. So both cannot be compared.
Something you said earlier, I wanted to come back to, and I hope this isn't an aggravating question, but you mentioned that growing up, Hamas was actually your hero, and I don't mean to. I want to learn more about that. I want to know what that was like growing up with Hamas as the heroes, like how that felt and what they did to kind of represent themselves in that light.
Okay, this is going to be the last question. If you
This is the final question. Final question.
Thanks. First of all, you need to understand how a child perceives his father. Our fathers are our gods, and I loved my father. And when my father was one of the founders of Hamas, what were you expecting from me? To see Hamas as zeros? Of course, it's our environment. And not to forget the notion that freedom fighters, masked men, ghosts, that they are going to be the saviors of the nation. So people hang their hopes on such heroes. It's a fable. It's a fantasy. It does not exist. Even today, Hamas is dressed like women shooting at the IDF, while those who live in a virtual reality make an avatar of Hamas that looks like something came from space. And we tell them, no, this is not how Hamas people look like. You know, they're a bunch of savages hiding among women and children. They are cowards. If they had the courage, they would have an honorable fight by coming out of the populated areas and facing the IDF outside of the populated areas. So there was a fantasy at some point, in my childhood. Seeing Hamas is just very similar to the fantasy of many of those who believe that there is such thing as freedom fighters. They're hanging their hopes on Robin Hoods. Robin Hoods want to steal from the rich to feed the poor. But true, generous people give from their own need, out of their need, to share their loaf of bread with their neighbors, to sustain their neighbors, to show love, to show compassion. And this is how society can grow and thrive. Not by the thugs who want to function thinking that Israel is developed country, and if they believe if they conquer Tel Aviv, then they can divide the property among the Palestinians. This is the attitude and the approach of thugs and thieves that can lead the population to a dead end, to total destruction. And this is exactly what happened in Gaza. So people can have their own fantasy about what Hamas is. The end of the day, their truth, they are deluded, they are psychopaths, they are dangerous people, they committed a capital crime, they are rapists, they are killers, they are dark people. They don't have concern to anybody who opposes them. They don't believe in equal rights. They don't believe in coexistence with anybody who opposes them. They cancel half of the society. They don't believe in women's rights. They oppress women. They are violent towards women. And what is a society without women? You already canceled half the society. And if they have been abusing the children, then that's it. All you have is just a savage society that is left. Oppress the women, abuse the children, and control the future of every individual in that society. This is Hamas. So now, the people who portray Hamas as those lean-looking, solid fighters fighting on behalf of the poor, they are lying to themselves. They are following shadows. And when they meet their heroes at some point, and I hope they do, in the other life, because when I met Hamas in prison, even though Hamas was my privilege, I was disgusted by Hamas nature. And again, with every act Hamas did, whether if it's against the Arabs or the Jews, Hamas proved to be a savage movement. So now, those who want to follow a fantasy that does not exist, sooner or later, they will meet their heroes. Then when they meet their heroes, they're going to realize that they just met the devil.
Wow. Mosab Hassan, thank you so much for the time. Let me end the
You're welcome.
recording, and then if you have 10 seconds